welcome to Professor SNAB, where we aim to make A-level biology as simple as a cell. So today we're understanding the light-dependent reactions of photosynthesis, including how light energy is trapped by exciting electrons in chlorophyll, and the role of these electrons in generating ATP, reducing NADP in photophosphorylation, and producing oxygen through photolysis of water. So, a quick review of photosynthesis. So, photosynthesis can be split into two distinct stages, the light-dependent reactions and the light-independent reactions. So, the light-dependent reaction, as the name states, is a direct dependence on light. The light-independent reactions depend, again, as the name suggests, depends on the products of light-dependent reactions, hence indirect dependence on light. So these reactions take place in the chloroplast, and the light-dependent reactions take place in the thylakoid membrane, while the light-independent reactions take place in the stroma. So the difference of where the light-dependent reaction takes place and where the light-independent reaction takes place is very, very important to remember, as these come up as 1 markers and a concerning number of people do mess it up. So do remember this so that you just have you're not missing out on free 1 markers. So light-dependent reactions. For the first stage is photolysis. So this is the process through which the light energy splits the water molecules. And this is part of the light-dependent reactions. So what are the products of photolysis? So these are 2 hydrogen ions, which is the same as protons. You also get 2 electrons and 1 atom of oxygen. So the 2 electrons, they come from the 2 hydrogen ions losing an electron to become a proton, to become an ion. So that's where the 2 electrons come from, and then also you have the oxygen atom. The hydrogen ions and electrons are used for further reactions, while the oxygen is released back into the atmosphere as a byproduct. So if you look at the equation for photosynthesis, you would see that oxygen is a byproduct that's released back into the atmosphere. This is the oxygen that it's referring to. So in the light-dependent reaction, light energy, which is from the sun, is converted into chemical energy, and this chemical energy is in the form of ATP and reduced NADP. So if you are interested in looking at a review for ATP, there is a video out already that you can have a look at. So now, what is NADP? NADP is a coenzyme. So it transfers hydrogen from one molecule to another. When NADP gains hydrogen, it is reduced and can be known as NADPH. So it means it's gained a hydrogen ion. And one way you can remember what reduced and oxidized mean is using the acronym OILRIG. So oxygen is loss and reduction is gain. That's what it stands for. So oxidation is loss of electrons and reduction is a gain of electrons. So for example, in this case, it is NADP is reduced, which means it is an oxidizing agent, which means that it is losing an electron. Reduced NADP can reduce other molecules by giving away hydrogen. So reduced NADP is an oxidizing agent. One way to remember is that something that is reduced oxidizes something else, and something that is oxidized reduces something else. That's one way you can remember it. That's how I think about it personally. So reduced NADP can reduce other molecules by giving away the hydrogen. And NADP can oxidize other molecules by receiving hydrogen. So what are the products of a light-dependent reaction? The products of light-dependent light-dependent reaction are ATP and NADPH. These products are produced as a result of a process called photophosphorylation, which once again keep notice of the location, like the place where these actually happen. So photophosphorylation takes place in the thylakoid membrane. Two types of photophosphorylation takes place in the thylakoid membrane, and one of them is a non-cyclic photophosphorylation, which produces both ATP and NADPH, while a cyclic photophosphorylation produces ATP only. So that's your distinction. So both these processes, that is cyclic and non-cyclic photophosphorylation, um, they involve an electron transport chain. So this is a chain of membrane proteins where electrons are passed from one protein to another. Again, one way to remember is it's literally in the name. So electron transport chain, the electrons being transported down a chain of proteins. Energy is released in this process. So the other process that both cyclic and non-cyclic photophosphorylation has is chemiosmosis. So this is the energy released as electrons pass down the electron transport chain, and it is used to produce ATP. So, what is non-cyclic photophosphorylation then? Like, even though they've both got the process, like the two main processes happening, well, light energy hits photosystem 2 in the thylakoid membrane, and two electrons gain energy and get excited to a higher energy level. The excited electrons pass through the first protein in the electron transport chain, and this protein is part of the electron transport chain. The electrons that leave are replaced by the electrons from the photolysis of water, and electron transport chain and chemiosmosis happens. So what is the role of H plus ions? So you might have observed that there is that NADP occasionally gains the hydrogen ion and sometimes it loses it. So what is its role? H plus is pumped through active transport, and this is pumped from the stroma to the thylakoid space. H plus ions then diffuse back into the stroma via ATP synthase enzymes, and this movement is what causes the enzyme to catalyze the production of ATP. So the entire purpose of H plus ions is once again to catalyze the reaction of producing ATP. So what happens after the electron transport chain? So the electrons are now passed from photosystem 2 to photosystem 1. This is a little confusing, but always remember that photosystem 2 happens first and photosystem 1 happens second. Why are they named that way? It's because photosystem 1 was discovered first and photosystem 2 was discovered after. So that's why they're named the way they are. The light energy hitting photosystem 1 results in another pair of electrons getting excited and they leave through an electron transport chain. Once again, similar process. So these electrons combine with hydrogen ions from the photolysis of water and the coenzyme NADP to form reduced NADP, which is the same as NADPH. The products, reduced NADP and the ATP, now pass through the independent reactions. So now, moving on to cyclic photophosphorylation. So light hits photosystem 1 and electrons are excited and leave the photosystem. Again, very similar process as non-cyclic. Passed through an electron transport chain, energy is released, the process of chemiosmosis takes place, the H plus ions pumped from stroma are now pumped into the thylakoid space. The H plus ions diffuse back via ATP synthase enzymes. ATP synthase enzymes catalyzes production of ATP and the electrons rejoin photosystem 1 and the cycle continues. The ATP enters the light independent reaction. So One tip I would give going forward is to kind of make a mind map of all the different processes of photosynthesis happening, because it can be pretty confusing if you're looking at the processes separately, but if you're able to see the links, like for example, in this case, that you learned the role of hydrogen ions separately to cyclic photophosphorylation. So what you can do is make kind of a mind map of H plus ions on its own, like a small mind map, and then connect that to a bigger mind map that's dedicated to cyclic photophosphorylation. So if you do that, you're able to see the links and how all of them work together. So then it's easier for you to answer the longer question and also easier for you to understand in general. So yeah, that is all from Professor Snap today. Hope this topic has been useful. It is quite a big topic and it can be very confusing to wrap your head around, but once you get it, it will stick to you. So like I said before, making a mind map of the different process, like individual mind maps of the different processes, and then kind of connecting them with arrows can really make it so much easier for you to see how it all works together and understand what's happening. So if any questions, as always, let me know in the comments below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.